Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Well, I have a lot of ground to cover, so today, without further ado, I am going to plunge right in, even if Aurora is quite determined that she is going to remain the centre of attention. So, without further ado, Hispanus Horribilis says, love it. Dear Lady C, do you have any comment regarding the alleged affair between Crown Prince Frederick of Denmark and the ex-Countess of Salvatierra? She appears to be Mexican, and the press is being brutal to her in Spain and in Ibero-America in general. One very famous Spanish radio commentator said, "This is very likely a conspiracy to alter the order of succession to the Danish throne and make young Prince Christian first in line. Would like to hear your thoughts. Thank you for all the work you do, and like it's said in Spain, you have that duende." Gracias. Muchas gracias. All good wishes to you, your family, and the channel, and your beautiful pups. Well, funnily enough, both my boys' godfather is a Spanish count who is in line to be a grandee of Spain and a duke in Spain. And I have many friends in Spain and in Mexico, where, funnily enough, not only does my son's godfather live at the moment, but so do half the Spanish aristocracy and a healthy proportion of the imperial families of Europe, including, or at one stage including, the Habsburgs. So, first of all, let me say, Genoveva Casanova is ravishingly beautiful. She is blonde. That should tell you something. In Mexico, it is virtually unheard of for a Mexican who is blonde or of Spanish origin and who has remained in Mexico to not be from the top tier. It's just the way things have gone. She is blonde, she is beautiful, she's just turned 47. She was married to one of the 5 sons of the fabulously rich Cayetana, Duchess of Alba, who was the most titled woman on earth. It's no longer her. It's now one of the other Spanish duchesses, because she gave away several of her titles to several of her children. So it's now the Duchess of Medinaceli who's the most titled woman in Spain, and I think person on earth. Well, Genoveva I'm almost speechless by what has been going on. She categorically denies, and I'm going to read out a statement that she made. She says the statements are malicious and untrue. I categorically deny the statements that suggest a romantic relationship between Prince Frederick and me. Any statement of this type not only completely lacks the truth, but also misinterprets the facts in a malicious manner. This is already in the hands of my lawyers, who will take care of the pertinent steps to protect my right to honor, truth, and privacy. Well, my understanding is that she is obviously moving in the highest circles internationally, which is no surprise, and that she has been on the lookout for true love and even announced it a few weeks before all of this broke, that she would like true love. She believes in true love. And I have to say, she's not the only one. I could never be bothered to have a relationship of convenience. It was either going to be the real thing or nothing. So I get where she's coming from in that regard. She has 2 sons with the Duchess of Alba's son. They're divorced. They get along very well. She was evidently going to be going to dinner, and first of all to an event at the Thyssen-Bornemisza National Museum, which is in Madrid. Fabulous museum. I have been there. Incidentally, who runs it is the consort of the rightful King of Austria-Hungary, Cesi Thyssen, now an Archduchess of Austria. It was her father who set up the museum, and she runs it. She is the primary force. So do you begin to get a picture of the fact that this is very high-level aristocracy and royalty that all mix together perfectly innocently? I mean, everybody doesn't have to be jumping into bed with everybody else. And they were supposed to be going with another friend who dropped out, and they continued the evening without the friend, perfectly innocent, perfectly reasonably, perfectly acceptably, no big deal. And we're speaking about Spain, incidentally. When you're in Spain, there's nothing unusual about dining at midnight and rising from the table at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's perfectly normal. So they went out, they had dinner, they went back and had nightcaps, and he left in the early hours of the morning. No secrecy, no surreptitious conduct, nothing. Well, interestingly enough, he was photographed leaving. Was this a trap? Who set the trap? I've heard many different versions, one of which has been promulgated in The Question, that this is revenge from other parties in Denmark who have decided to cause trouble for the Crown Prince. I don't want to say more than that because I don't wish to be sued by anybody, but you will recall that there have been problems in the Danish royal family with the stripping of the princely titles of Prince Joachim's children. And I know from friends of mine who are very close to the Danish royal family that the matter has not settled down, and that indeed it has caused such problems that Queen Margrethe somewhat regrets having done it. Well, she might regret having done it even more if this is payback time for those who would think that Crown Prince Frederick were somehow responsible, and they want him knocked out of the running, and his son becomes crown prince. I mean, is this a conspiracy theory? It certainly sounds like it to me. How plausible is it? Who knows? But my understanding is that there are no problems in the marriage at this point. Of course, neither he nor Crown Princess Mary are pleased with what has been reported, and also there is something else in the mix, that the news was leaked to coincide with the state visit of King Felipe and Queen Letizia of Spain. So all of this has broken when about a member of the Spanish aristocracy, and the absolute pinnacle of the Spanish aristocracy, because the Albas are, in fact, they're richer, and some people would say they're grander than the present royal family in their way of life, and they're certainly a lot richer. And some people would say they have longer lasting power and certainly a lot of influence. So I don't think I want to say more than that, beyond the fact that this looks as if it's mischief making of the highest order. And quite frankly, you know, Crown Princess Mary has made a very good Crown Princess. Why would anybody wish to have her life's work as an adult terminated and she be marginalized? I think that's another dimension to all of this that people could think about. Not very pretty. Gentian Blue says, "Dear Lady C, what do you think of Petronella Wyatt's article in the Daily Mail on Saturday about Diana and Dodi?" Very good question. I read it. Petronella Wyatt, with due respect, I've met her a few times. We've moved in similar circles for decades. She is a somewhat competent journalist. Her father's first wife, Lady Moria Black, was very grand. I'm used to know Moria and her rather dishy second husband. Petronella's father was a Labour politician, Woodrow Wyatt, who ended up hosting the Queen Mother every year. He was, if I remember correctly, the head of the turf, something to do with the turf. Not the turf club, but something. I don't remember what it was now. And the mother was extremely eccentric and rather tiresome. And Petsy Baby has, I really have nothing to say about her, good or bad, quite frankly, beyond the fact that this article, well, she did make one or two good points, inadvertently. Not about Dodi and Diana, because she made it absolutely clear she knew absolutely nothing about what was happening in Diana's private life at the time of Diana's death. She knew nothing, and that she makes it clear, and believe me, she's absolutely right to have made it clear. She has got Diana's measure very wrong. She has got the measure of the relationship very wrong, unless, of course, Diana didn't know what she was talking about, and Petsy Baby does. But she made one really telling admission. that Diana had said to her in a previous conversation that if she had to do her life over, she would have done things differently in her marriage. That, to me, was the most salient point she made, and it went very much in favour of Diana as a person, because by the time Diana died, she had been in therapy and she was beginning to understand that some of her problems had been self-created and self-generated, and that she had helped to bring about the downfall of her marriage. And Petsy Baby also made another very telling admission about Diana, which was Diana confirming that in the early days of her marriage to Charles, he was crazy about her. So she made two very inadvertent but very telling comments without realizing, and then she's busy bad-mouthing Dodi. Well, yeah, Dodi was pretty insignificant, except very nice. I never met Dodi, but several of my greatest friends knew Dodi very well. Everybody says Dodi was the sweetest, nicest, kindest, most generous person. And she also makes the point that Diana liked the goodies that Dodi and Mohammed Al Fayed had to offer, and there she's right as well. But I think she's misread the situation. She's listened to the wrong people, in quotes. But, you know, what can I tell you? She's a working girl. She needed the money. She's done an article. It's not the first, won't be the last, that's in parts accurate and in other parts completely inaccurate. So I hope that answers the question. Marty Brown says, "Greetings, Lady C and beautiful fur babies. Woof woof." Lady C, over the weekend here in the US, news broke that the delusional duo, also known as the Harkles, are $28 million in debt and want to rent a large apartment in Kensington Palace to carry out royal duties in England to repair their reputation while keeping their residence in Montecito. The article said they want to perform royal duties 4 months out of the year and reside in California the other 8 months. Please tell me King Charles is not agreeing to this, and the article is nothing more than a puff piece put out by the Harkles, in the hopes that once the article becomes public, everything would fall into place and go their way. Well, it wouldn't be the first time they tried that technique and failed miserably. We're going to give out Oscars. I'm going to be on, what's it called? This latest thing that are, Audible. I'm going to be on Audible. I'm going to make more money than the Obamas. And then those nasty Audible people say no. Anyway, let's continue. Thank you for your time. I watch your podcast every day and find your videos very informative. Thank you. And I am delighted that you do. First of all, you will recall the Queen said, "No half in, no half out." King Charles has made it very clear he wishes Harry and Meghan well in their new life abroad. No question of half in, half out. If Harry and Meghan should rent an apartment anywhere, and if they did it in Kensington Palace, where William has an apartment, I don't see that one working, not as things stand at the moment. Let me put it that way. And they are going to spend 4 months of the year here doing royal duties. How gracious of them. All you peasants, just look at me. I'm classy, 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 classy. Gotta wave my hands, sorry. I'm a windshield wiper. I'm classy. And then 8 months of the year, well, buy Nadinola skin bleach. It's the best thing for you, unless you're like me, in which case buy Meghan's Brown Up. That will get you a nice bronze look. That is right. It will, it will, it will. I'm in business to make money, and therefore I've got to hawk my wares. Problem is, no one's buying. As you said in your question, it's yet another one of their wishful thinking plants, obviously. And also, even though I'm sure by now they know, this is not going to take any more than acid is going to take in scones. They get something out of it. People speaking about it. Attention. You see? Biscuit the Cat says, Lady C, I read today an allegation that H&M are $28 million in debt. Could that be true? If so, do you think King Charles would bail them out? King Charles told Queen Elizabeth II, complaining about Harry, he thinks I'm a bank, and he's not a bank. He told Harry no then, when it was a significantly lesser sum. Do you think he's going to tell Harry yes now? Listen to what Extrue has to say. Lady C, has Harry demonstrated any harmful damage that the papers have done to him that were not truthful reporting? No. It seems not really, but I'm going to answer this part of the question after the second part, which relates to what we've been speaking about. It seems his fury is about being exposed as a worthless human being, which he is and has only gotten worse. Also, do you think that the Harkles are floating the news that they are $28 million in debt to back up the plan of claiming bankruptcy should Samantha win? No. Extrue. You're onto something. You're onto something. I wouldn't put it past them. I'm sure Meghan would have no compunction about declaring bankruptcy if she felt it was in her financial interest to do so. And at the same time, she could push her disabled sister down even more and ram her further into that wheelchair than she has already done. Because I believe in community. I believe in compassion. I believe in family. I believe in being kind. And let's not forget, pigs fly. Now, to answer the first part of the question. Harry's grouse has always been when people shone the light of reality in his direction. He didn't like it when his former girlfriends pointed out to him that there were no paparazzi following. There were no bushes for them to be hiding behind. And this was all Harry's paranoia. He didn't like that. I'll tell you, as a public figure, no public figure really likes the unwanted attentions of the press. But if you have any connection to reality, and if you have any intelligence, and you have a degree of maturity, you know it is an inconvenience that you have to put up with. And you do. And if you are like me, and there are more people like me than like Hugh Grant and Elton John, there are more public figures who think, yeah, I'll put up with the inconvenience because we need a free press in a democracy. Very few of the people I know are sufficiently unintelligent, unthinking, selfish, self-centered, and obtuse to think that because the press might sometimes say things we don't like, and remember, we do have a remedy, we can sue, that the press should be shut down and shut up at the same time. Harry doesn't like the fact that the press speak the truth about him, and Meghan hates it even more. They obviously have secrets they have been determined to keep. Everybody is entitled to privacy, including them, but are people entitled to flaunt themselves publicly on a daily basis, on the one hand, and impose themselves upon the public via press reports leaked by them and their people, on the one hand, and then on the other hand, demanding that the press only say nice things about them? That's insanity, to put it mildly. And of course, if Meghan should lose the case and Samantha win, Meghan could quite easily declare bankruptcy, and that would shaft Samantha. It would be utterly dishonourable, but would she do it? I'm not taking any questions on that subject. Let me put it that way. If she did it, it would be very much in keeping with the Rachel Zane attitude of gotta win at all costs, and it would certainly further the narrative of a ruthless opportunist who has set out to destroy her family, and up to now has succeeded rather too brilliantly for the comfort of any family-oriented and decent person. Let me put it that way. Keep It Real says, Lady C, there is someone claiming to work very close to and for the royal family, saying that the Sussexes are coming back in 2024. They will be moving into Bagshot Park, and that the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh will be moving into Frogmore Cottage. Is there any truth to this? I think I already know the answer. You do. It's absolutely not. But a lot of people took this for truth, are extremely angry about it. And with the news that the Sussexes are £28 million in debt, I think it's dollars, people think the king is paying it off and bringing them back. So I think it needs clearing up. Thanks for your time. Delighted to clear it up. The Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh's home is Bagshot Park. It used to be the Duke of Connaught's home. He was Queen Victoria's son. His house was also Clarence House, which is now the King's House. Bagshot Park is actually a splendid residence. It's very near to Ascot. It's very near to Windsor. There is a little prospect of the Edinburghs moving out at this stage to be making a way for anybody, especially the Sussexes. This is yet more nonsense being fed into the public domain by propagandists. I mean, you have to give it to them. They are extremely resourceful and productive. Don't hold your breath, my dear, unless you're suicidal. Edward and Sophie are remaining at Bagshot Park for the foreseeable future, just as how Andrew is remaining at Royal Lodge. Okay? Leila Tiabji says, Lady C, your thoughts on Nikki Haslam's tea towel and comments on the Prince and Princess of Wales. Well, yes, to those of you who don't know, Nikki Haslam is an interior designer, not a bad interior designer either. I've known him for many years. Our relationship has not always been cordial. He once said something about me which was untrue and vicious, and he thought it was witty. And my lawyers had to threaten to sue him. This was when he had a column in a magazine called The Ritz, which was backed by Baron Stephen Bentinck. I nearly said Bentheim because Prince and Princess George Bentheim are friends of mine. Got the names slightly confused for 30 seconds. Sorry. And Nikki was so enamored of his bitchy comment that he actually repeated it in his autobiography, just taking my name out of the equation, which is just as well. Otherwise, I'd have sued his clutch box. That's right. I can be fierce when I have to be. Every year he comes out with these comments. It's really fun. It's really a send-up. It's Nikki being Nikki who is outrageous. Now, Nikki on anything sartorial is a bit of a joke, because Nikki was for many years a picture of masculine Etonian dandified elegance. Beautiful Savile Row suits, nice Turnbull and Asser shirts, lovely Hilditch and Key ties, etc., etc. And then he woke up one day and decided he was going to make waves, dyed his hair black, made it punk, had all sorts of jewels in silver floating around his body, and looked like a spiv. That lasted a few years. He's now more or less reverted to type. He doesn't like the fact that the Prince and Princess of Wales sometimes colour coordinate. He finds that sort of thing common. Nikki's favourite word is common, and nobody has yet told Nikki that the commonest thing on earth is for people to call other people common. I hope that makes the point. But he also does it for shock value. I mean, I actually sort of like Nicky. He can be very good company some of the time, and the rest of the time he is another person. He will also move heaven and earth to go to the opening of a lavatory bowl, which I regard as a great weakness and a sign of something very pitiable, because it's as if he thinks if he's not asked to everything, he's missing something. But he's missing something if he's at everything. He's missing serenity. He's missing solitude. Having said all of that, he can be very entertaining and can be quite generous as well. So I think his tea towels, but he, I think, would call them washing up cloths, are really tongue-in-cheek, except sometimes Nicky's tongue is in the wrong cheek. Janice says, "Dear Lady C, do you know if there was a reason why the Queen had Sara Latham, who is a strong advocate for the US Democrats and had worked for Tony Blair? Was she playing a strategy, do you think, as to how to deal with the two traitors?" Sara Latham, if I understand correctly, is binational. She, if I'm not mistaken, also worked on Hillary Clinton's campaign. She was hired because she is capable, she is loyal, she is trustworthy, she was a safe pair of hands, and it was hoped that with her affiliations, shall we say, that would palliate the political activist Meghan, who couldn't complain that she had had anybody neutral or Republican or right-wing foisted upon her. But Sara Latham ended up having as checkered a relationship with Meghan and Harry as everybody else has had. And she is one of the people who formed the Sussexes Survivors Club, who described Meghan as a narcissistic sociopath. Do I need to say any more? I think that should say it all. The Queen bent over backwards to provide somebody who would be sympathetic and who Meghan would find was on the same wavelength as her politically, and who Meghan could work with, and Meghan couldn't work with her, nor could Harry. So I hope that answers the question. Traditional Tory says, Lady C, I have no doubt you know more about that, I'll start over. Lady C, I have no doubt you know more than we're being told in the MSM about what's going on behind the scenes with the government. Can we have the benefit of your wisdom regarding the appointment of David Cameron as Foreign Secretary and the host of resignations from the cabinet? Well, to those of you in the United States who don't know what's going on, we have had yet another political drama here with Suella Braverman who was the Home Secretary, being booted out of office yesterday. She was replaced by James Cleverly, who was the Foreign Secretary and who is now the Home Secretary. And David Cameron, the former Prime Minister, a firm, solid Remainer, has been brought in as Foreign Secretary. Since he's not a member of either house, or was not at the time of his appointment, the King has been pleased to make him a member, life peer, of the House of Lords. There are various opinions about David Cameron. My own opinion is he is a disgrace as a politician. He is the one who pushed for the referendum in Scotland and the referendum about Brexit in England. And when he didn't get his own way, because he thought that everybody would vote Remain, he threw in the towel in the most puerile, irresponsible and childish fashion. I'm not sure that having a former Prime Minister who is a renowned Remainer at this time is, as Foreign Secretary, is a good idea. Of course, Michael Heseltine, who is a former Deputy Prime Minister and who was a study in treachery as a politician, and incidentally is well known to very close friends of mine from his youth, and they have not one good word to say about him. Well, he said that he thought Cameron's appointment was excellent. Now, anything he says you should treat with suspicion. I am a great admirer of David Cameron and worked for him for many years. I think this will send an important signal to the country, but also to the world. It is the clearest signal that the sort of right-wing lurch that we've seen and the anti-European movement we've seen has been put to bed, and that will get a message across to people. Well, this is deeply worrying, because there is no anti-European message being put across by anybody in this country. What there has been was an anti-Brexit message that was being put across by the Remainers. There was no anti-European message. We simply wanted to make absolutely sure that we were never going to be a part of a federal state of Europe. And so we withdrew from Europe. Now, I have friends who are Remainers. I have friends who are Brexiteers. But we had a series of prime ministers, ex-prime ministers, as well as this incumbent prime minister at the time, who were actively seeking to undermine Brexit. That means they had utter contempt for the democratic process, for the rule of law, for Parliament's right to represent the people, which they systematically tried to undermine. Tony Blair, Labour; John Major, Tory; David Cameron, Tory. Wait for it. Theresa May, whose incompetent, half-hearted attempts at making sure that Brexit would be such a failure that we would be forced cap in hand, to go back to the European Union. I'm sorry. Once the people's voice has been heard, it is incumbent upon the politicians in a democracy to listen to it and to implement the wishes of the people, which was Brexit, and to make it as successful as possible. Not to do everything in their power to make Brexit as unsuccessful as possible. All of this coincides with a book that has just been published by Nadine Dorries, who was a great favourite of Boris Johnson, and who has effectively said that there is a cabal of a handful of people in the Conservative Party behind the scenes who manipulate situations so that who they want to be in power will be put in place. Now, I think I've not read the book. I've read the serialization of the book. But I know enough people who know enough of the people involved very well to say that when she says in the book about Dr. No as the leading henchman behind the scenes who is dictating what should and shouldn't be done and how the country should be run, there is no Dr. No. That, my understanding, was the libel lawyers making sure that Dougie Smith, Douglas Smith, could not sue when she said that he and his poodle, Michael Gove, were behind a lot of the mischief making, leaking to the press to bring down Boris, leaking to get rid of Matt Hancock, which thank God they did. Pity they didn't get rid of him earlier. Dominic Cummings is also a member of that group. I happen to know Dominic Cummings' parents-in-law. His father-in-law is an absolutely charming man. But I'm not getting drawn into the extent to which I think that Nadine Dorries's book is accurate, beyond saying that in this case, I would say, where there's smoke, there's fire. Maybe it's not the conflagration that she would suggest it is, but it's definitely fire, and it's blocking up the air conditioning units, and it's creating havoc with the vents. You know, all of this has come about because Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, made a very, in my opinion, ill-advised and ill-judged comment about the police. But it had a measure of truth. However, she should have cleared the comments before she went public with them, and she didn't do that. She also, as the Home Secretary, should not be making truthful or otherwise inflammatory comments about the way the police are policing demonstrations when, by her own account, she is married to a Jew and a Zionist. And then she is making comments that are adverse to the pro-Palestinian demonstrators. you know, as the Home Secretary, she has an absolute duty to not inflame and, if anything, to pour oil on troubled waters, not kerosene, which is what she did. Jacob Rees-Mogg, who's one of the MPs, and he is by and large very sound in many areas, he thinks it was a mistake to sack her. I'm not sure it was a mistake to sack her. I think, you know, she was a little bit too partial at a time that her role required greater impartiality. But he agrees that it's not fatal to the government, because he said governments don't stand or fall on the appointment of a foreign secretary, meaning bringing in Cameron. Well, I think what the Tory party is doing is positioning itself, because they think that they stand a better chance of winning the next election if they are Labour light. So they are going to pursue Labour light policies, and people are going to have to choose between them and the Labour Party with its Blairite tendency, Keir Starmer leadership. So basically, the electorate is going to be given a choice between, as the Jamaicans would say, black dog and monkey. When in fact, it amounts to no choice at all, which is basically what the expression in Jamaica means. So there are people in the Conservative Party who think that there is far too much looking at polls, looking at what the media will have to say. And of course, half the time the media is only mouthing the sentiments that have been evinced by the Michael Goves and the Dougie Smiths of this world. And I have nothing, incidentally, against any political party that wishes to have backseat regulators. What I do have something against is political parties that seem to have a flagrant disregard for the best interests of the country, as the country itself has said they want. So, what do I think of the whole thing? It would be very nice if we had a government that was a little bit more predictable, that actually stuck to an agenda that it was elected to adhere to, and that there weren't all of these choppings and changes, which people find very disconcerting. However, this has got to be the last cabinet reshuffle before the next election. So this is really a reshuffle with the election in mind. And let's see how they perform. Because What do the British people want? I would have thought the British people want a government that delivers on its promises. More than that, I think I shouldn't say at this point, because I don't want to get sucked in too much into party politics. And I will end on what Theresa May has had to say, the former Prime Minister, about her compatriot and fellow Remainer, David Cameron. Congratulations on his return to government. His immense experience on the international stage will be invaluable at this time of great uncertainty in our world. Looking forward to working together again. Let us see what happens, because I'll tell you one thing that has emerged recently. All the Jeremiads who were predicting doom with the British economy have been proven wrong about Brexit. Brexit didn't have the disastrous effect upon the economy that they predicted it would. And that's even taking into account the disastrous effects of the COVID mismanagement, as it now emerges, that took place. So, I just like a decent, stable government with a degree more predictability than has so far been shown. And also, the whole business of immigration, which is a deal buster for most people in this country. And I'm not referring to legal immigration, I'm referring to illegal immigration. Suella Braverman, more or less, was the champion of a policy that would have at least brought to some conclusion illegal immigration in this country. Let's see what Dougie Smith and Michael Gove and all of the other backroom and front room boys come up with. Let's see what they think. Oh, well, we'll be able to ignore that and we'll still succeed. It's gonna happen, because I don't know if people in either the United Kingdom or the United States in politics realize it, but the people of this country and the United States of America want effective government. They don't want to be told one thing by the government and the government does another, and the problems perpetuate, and we are sold a string of lies or half-truths or quarter-truths, and we are ignored and treated as if we are imbeciles and infants when we are neither. I think we'd like a government that respects us, don't you? And on that note, I'll say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. Please keep the questions and comments coming in so I will know what you would like us to be speaking about. Okay, thank you so much. God bless. And if you have truly enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and Godspeed.